Your grandson calls me Mom now." I froze, phone in hand, laundry half folded on the bed. The woman's voice was calm, confident, almost tender, like she belonged in my life. "My name is Margaret. I'm 56. My son's voice should have been on the other end, not hers. For a moment, all I heard was the faint hum of the dryer and my own pulse. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Outside, late morning light spilled across the kitchen table, catching on the mug I hadn't touched. The air smelled faintly of toast from breakfast. My grandson's crayon drawing hung crooked on the fridge. A stick figure family with 3 people, not 4. I hadn't noticed that before. The house felt safe only a few minutes ago. Now it felt staged, like a memory already rewritten. I redialed. It rang twice. Silence. No voicemail, no message. Just that empty pause before the disconnect. I told myself there had to be an explanation. A friend, a joke, a misunderstanding. But something sharp pressed against the back of my throat. I opened the home camera app. The feed from my son's living room flickered, then steadied. A woman I'd never met was tucking my grandson into bed. She leaned close, whispered something, and he laughed. My son stood in the doorway, watching her the way a man watches his home, not as a guest, but as an owner. My breath hitched. I replayed the clip, then zoomed in until her face filled the frame. Smiling, confident. The way she brushed his hair told me she'd done it before. I could hear my heartbeat louder than the tiny audio feed. "Who are you?" I whispered to the screen. The sun was already sliding lower when I began packing. Jeans, a sweater, toothbrush, charger. Every move was mechanical. I didn't stop to plan, only to act. My neighbor saw me from her porch as I locked the door. She asked if everything was all right. I lied. "Just visiting family," I said. The drive felt endless. The dashboard clock blinked 5:42 p.m. when I hit the highway. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to ache. Every exit looked the same, but my thoughts kept looping. Who answers another man's phone and says something like that unless she wants to be heard? The closer I got to my son's house, the heavier the air seemed to grow. The neighborhood lights came on one by one. I slowed near his driveway and saw a second car parked beside his. Not hers. Something newer, expensive, unfamiliar. I sat there for a minute, engine idling. My bag rested on the passenger seat. Inside it, my phone buzzed once, a missed call from the same number. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at the camera feed again. The last frame still showed her hand brushing against the glass door before the clip ended. I turned off the engine. My fingers trembled as I reached for the handle. "Just walk up and ask," I told myself. The porch light was on. Through the front window, shadows moved, soft outlines of people, laughter muffled by glass. I lifted my phone, opened the camera app again. There she was, standing where I used to stand, holding the remote, smiling toward the lens. And then she did something that stopped my breath completely. She waved at the camera before I knocked. She looked surprised, but not guilty. Her hair was loose, her feet bare on the porch tiles. She held my grandson's toy car like she'd just picked it up after playing with him. I stood there gripping my suitcase, pretending my heart wasn't racing. "I came to visit," I said quietly. She blinked once, then smiled. "Of course," she said. "Come in." The smell hit me first. Lavender cleaner, too strong, like someone trying to erase history. I stepped inside, scanning the room. My pictures were gone from the walls. The shelves that used to hold family albums now displayed her frames. Everything was neat, sterile, wrong. The sound of my grandson's laughter came from the next room, pure and familiar, yet somehow different. "Where's Daniel?" I asked. "He's working late," she said, still smiling. "Would you like some tea?" "I'm fine." "Juice, then? For the little one?" Her voice was practiced, like she'd rehearsed hospitality. My grandson ran in and threw his arms around her legs. "Mama," he said. The word landed like a slap. My throat tightened. She tousled his hair and said softly, "He gets confused sometimes." I forced a small laugh, but my hand trembled as I reached for my bag. "He's always been bright," I managed. "Just forgetful with names." She didn't respond. Instead, she pointed toward the couch. "Sit, please. I'll get him ready for bed." I sat because arguing would have exposed too much. From where I sat, I could see the hallway mirror reflecting her movements. Confident. At home. She carried him upstairs, humming a tune I didn't know. When she returned, she spoke as if she'd earned the right to be gentle. "He missed you." "I can tell," I said. My voice was sharp enough to cut. We stood there, neither moving. The clock on the wall ticked toward 8. I noticed a faint stain on the carpet, the one Daniel and I had chosen years ago after the flood. I used to say it made the room warmer. Now it felt like a reminder of everything temporary. "Will you stay for dinner?" she asked. "I already ate," I lied. "You came a long way," she said. "You must be tired." "I'll manage." I took a breath, looked at the photos again. Her face with my grandson at the park, her hand on his shoulder, my son in the background, smiling. I wanted to tear them down, but I didn't. "Daniel will be glad you came," she added softly. "I'm sure he will," I replied. The air felt too clean, too quiet. I reached into my purse for my phone, pretending to check messages. Instead, I opened the security app. The camera log showed her unlocking the door at 6:32 p.m. using a code. My code had been changed months ago. I smiled, more to steady myself than to be polite. "You've made yourself comfortable here." She tilted her head. "We're family now, aren't we?" The words hung between us, heavy and deliberate. I left before she could say anything else. My car felt colder than the night outside. I drove to a small motel off the highway, one I used to stop at years ago when visiting my sister. The receptionist didn't recognize me, which was somehow comforting. The room was small but clean. The bedspread smelled faintly of detergent and old air conditioning. I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying everything. The look on her face when she opened the door, the way my grandson said "Mama," the faint pause before she told me he was at work. It wasn't confusion. It was choreography. I opened my phone again and scrolled through old photos of my son and grandson. Our trip to the lake, the birthday candles, the smile that used to look real. I whispered to myself, "She's not replacing me. She's erasing me." Outside, the streetlight flickered. My suitcase stood near the door, still zipped. I hadn't unpacked. I didn't plan to. At midnight, I decided. I wouldn't call her bluff with words. I'd use truth. Proof doesn't argue. It ends conversations. By morning, I was ready. I'd find out what she wanted, and what she'd already taken. My phone buzzed as I checked out. My son's name lit up the screen. He asked, "Mom, why are you there?" He said, "You're overreacting, Mom." I held the phone tight, as if gripping the words could change them. His tone was calm, measured, the kind of voice people use when they want to end a conversation, not understand it. I could almost see him shaking his head, smiling like he was being patient. That word, "Mom," used like a weapon of control, softened just enough to sound kind. "She's helping," he added. "You should be thankful." "Helping?" I asked. "By replacing me?" He sighed. "You're reading into things again." The line went quiet, except for his slow breathing. I could hear traffic in the background, his new life moving without me. I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. "I saw her with him," I said. "On camera." "She was putting him to bed," he replied, calm as glass. "You need to stop watching." He made it sound so simple, like the problem was me. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my mug. The coffee had gone cold. The warmth that used to fill this space was gone too. I scrolled through old texts between us, little messages from months ago. "Mom, thank you for helping with the down payment. Couldn't have done it without you. You'll always have a place with us." Now each line felt rehearsed, hollow, like something written by a stranger. A message from Laura, a friend who'd introduced them, flashed on my screen. "Be careful. She's done this before." I froze. I called her immediately. "She's not new to this," Laura said. "She moves fast, finds men who'll let her in, and once she's settled, she builds her story around them. Money, home, everything. It's a pattern." My fingers tightened around the phone. "So she's done this before?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't think it would reach you like this." When we hung up, I felt the kind of silence that doesn't leave. I poured another cup of coffee, more out of habit than need. The mug was warm for a few seconds, then cooled too quickly, like everything else these days. I traced the rim with my thumb and thought about all the times I'd said yes, just to keep peace. Yes to her visits. Yes to her advice. Yes to pretending she was harmless. Every yes had cost me something. No more. I opened my notes app and began listing what I knew, dates, details, changes I'd noticed. Small things, but small things matter when truth is slippery. I wasn't chasing confrontation. I was drawing lines. That night, I decided the first one. No more unannounced visits. If my son wanted to see me, he'd call first. I would not walk into another home where my own photo had been boxed away. The next morning at 9:15, my phone buzzed. A notification. New post from Emily. I hesitated, then opened it. There she was, standing beside my son and my grandson, smiling into the camera. Her caption read, "3 generations united." The same phrase I'd used years ago when I framed our first family portrait. I stared at it until my vision blurred. I whispered, "She's not confused. She's claiming." The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, scattering coffee like spilled ink across the tiles. I didn't move to clean it up. I sat there for a long time, the phone still glowing beside the broken pieces, realizing what she'd done, not just to me, but to the story of who we were. And the worst part was knowing my son believed her version more than mine. He sent me a bank transfer instead of calling. The screen lit up just before noon. The alert tone was sharp, brief, and final. $500, labeled for groceries. I hadn't asked for help, and he knew that. I stared at the message until it blurred, like maybe if I looked long enough it would change into something human. A voice, an apology, a call. But it didn't. I used to wait for his Sunday visits. He'd stop by after church, sometimes bringing my grandson's drawings, sometimes just sitting at the table with me while we talked about bills, about his job, about how hard life could be. But those talks had turned into transfers. Cold, automatic, efficient. I called once. He didn't answer. Then I texted, "Did you mean to send this?" The reply came an hour later. "It's just support, Mom. You shouldn't have to worry about anything." Support. Like I was a charity, not his mother. The money stayed in my account for 2 days before I touched it. I bought milk and bread out of guilt. The rest sat there, staring back at me every time I opened the banking app. The silence between us was now priced. By the 3rd day, I drove to the bank. The teller, a young woman with a neat ponytail, smiled as if kindness could fix things. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I just need to verify something," I said. My voice was steady, but my hands weren't. I slid my ID across the counter. A transfer came through. I'd like to know where it originated. She clicked through a few screens. The keys tapped quickly, then slowed. Her tone softened. "Yes, ma'am. It's from a joint account." I frowned. "Joint?" "Yes," she said quietly, printing a small slip of paper. "It lists 2 names." She slid it across the counter, face down. I flipped it over and saw it. His name beside hers. For a second, I forgot to breathe. "That can't be right," I said. "My son doesn't share his account with anyone." The teller hesitated. "Maybe it's a linked household account." Household. The word stung worse than truth. I folded the paper and nodded, as if that made it smaller. "Thank you," I said. Outside, the afternoon air felt heavy. Cars passed, people carried shopping bags. Life moved normally. But something in me had shifted. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, engine off, just holding the slip. My reflection in the windshield looked older, smaller. Money was supposed to be practical, not emotional. Yet here it was, the new currency of distance. Back home, I placed the receipt in an envelope and tucked it in a drawer. I didn't need to look at it again. I already knew what it meant. She wasn't just in his house. She was in his accounts. That evening, around 6 p.m., I reheated soup but didn't eat. My phone buzzed again. Another message from him. "Hope you're okay. Don't stress. Everything's fine." Everything's fine. I wanted to ask him if love was now something you could transfer in fixed amounts. Instead, I wrote back, "Thank you. I'm fine." A lie, neat and small, just like his deposit. The next morning, I noticed a pattern, her name appearing beside his in their shared digital transactions. Groceries, gas, utilities. Each entry was a piece of a life I no longer recognized. I poured coffee, careful not to spill, and stared at the steam curling upward. It reminded me of the mornings we used to sit together before his shift, counting coins, planning payments, laughing about how broke we were. Back then, struggle meant unity. Now, comfort meant control. By the time the cup cooled, I understood something painful but true. He wasn't trying to silence me out of cruelty. He was paying for peace. But peace built on money has an expiration date. When I logged into my account again that night, I didn't look for the balance. I looked for her name and found it, bold and official, right beside his. Her name appeared as co-owner on his account. He told me not to visit without texting first. It was short, polite, and cold, like an instruction from someone who no longer wanted to explain himself. I read the message twice, standing in the kitchen with my phone still in my hand. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wanted to reply, to remind him that I didn't need an appointment to see my own family, but I didn't. I just set the phone down on the counter and stared at it until the screen dimmed. Later that afternoon, I called the pastor. He'd always been kind, steady in a way that calmed people. "He says it's for stability," I told him. There was a pause. Then he said softly, "Sometimes peace takes distance, not anger. Give them space for now." "Space?" I repeated. "He lives 10 miles from me, not another planet." "I know," he said gently, "but pushing won't help. Let him come back to you." I didn't answer. I just listened to the hum of the line before hanging up. That evening, I sat on the porch. The street was quiet, except for a single car passing now and then. My phone rested beside me. The message was still there on the screen, glowing faintly. I reread it, every word feeling like a brick added to a wall I hadn't built. "Don't visit without texting first." It sounded reasonable until you thought about what it really meant, that my presence had become something to schedule, something inconvenient. I tried to tell myself it was temporary, but the truth is, rules like that rarely go away. They only grow. By 9, the sky had gone dark. I went inside, made tea, and sat at the kitchen table. The smell of mint filled the air. I picked up my phone again and typed a reply I never sent. "I don't need permission to love you." Then I deleted it. At 10, I scrolled through our old messages. Each one told a story in reverse, from warmth to distance, from laughter to logistics. "Mom, can you drop him at school?" Turned into, "We've got it handled." "Come for dinner." Turned into, "Maybe next weekend." I saw the pattern now, clear and deliberate. I printed every text, one by one. The printer hummed quietly, spitting out proof of what words can do when they stop being kind. I stacked the pages and folded them neatly, then slipped them into an envelope. Not as evidence for a fight, as evidence that I wasn't imagining things. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A single vibration on the counter. I nearly ignored it, assuming another ad or reminder. But when I glanced at the screen, I froze. It was from my neighbor, Jim. "You still awake?" I typed back, "Yes. Why?" A moment later, "Saw strange lights in your son's yard again. Same car from last time. Thought you'd want to know." I stood up, heart pounding. Are you sure? Yeah, parked by the side gate, left after a few minutes. I looked out the window even though I knew I was too far away to see anything. The street outside my house was empty, still, pretending innocence. But my mind was already racing. It wasn't random. It wasn't harmless. I thought about calling him right then, asking who kept showing up at that hour. But I knew how it would go. He'd sigh, tell me to stop worrying, maybe remind me about the new rule. No, not this time. I opened the drawer, took out the envelope of printed messages, and set it on the table. Then I unlocked my phone, scrolled back through the neighbor's texts, and saved his number under one word. Witness. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the clock hands crawl toward 2, then 3, the hours passing like slow arguments. I wasn't sure what the lights meant yet, but I knew this wasn't about space anymore. It was about control. And if control was what she wanted, she'd learn soon enough that I still had a few ways left to fight back. Before dawn, I made myself one last promise. Whatever they were hiding, I'd find it. Quietly, carefully, but completely. I printed every text before deleting the thread. I bought my own camera. It wasn't about spying. It was about survival, about not being called paranoid one more time. The store clerk asked if I needed installation help. I told him no. I'd learned how to wire things long before she learned how to smile for pictures. That night, I placed it across the street from their house, small, discreet, pointing toward the driveway. Every angle measured, every reflection checked. I told myself it was only to quiet my doubts, to stop imagining things that might not exist. But I already knew. Days passed. I checked the feed every morning before sunrise, sipping coffee at the kitchen table while the neighborhood slept. Mostly nothing. Lights turning on, cars leaving, a shadow here and there. But on the 12th night, around 9:40 p.m., the feed caught something different. Her car pulled in first. Minutes later, a black sedan stopped right behind it. A man stepped out, tall, careful, carrying something under his arm. She met him at the side gate, not the front door. They spoke briefly, faces close. Then she handed him a folder, thick with papers. He gave her an envelope. She glanced around before slipping it into her purse. My hand shook as I replayed the clip. The camera caught everything. The way she tilted her head, the way she smiled, the faint reflection of the porch light glinting off the envelope. I whispered, "What are you doing, Emily?" The footage ran in loops as I tried to make sense of it. My son was out of town that night. I knew because his phone location still shared updates with me, one of the last permissions I hadn't lost. He'd been 200 miles away. I watched again. She wasn't nervous. She was practiced. This wasn't an affair. It was business. The next morning, I transferred the clips to a hidden folder on my laptop and backed them up to a private cloud. I labeled it something ordinary. Garden maintenance. Then I downloaded a few still frames, her hand passing the folder, the man's ring visible as he handed her the envelope, the reflection of her face, calm, certain. Proof. Real, undeniable proof. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Proof changes power, but it also changes peace. Once you have it, you can't unknow it. By evening, my stomach was tight with unease. I sent one clip to Laura, the same friend who had warned me before. No explanation, just the video. 10 minutes later, she called. "Margaret," she said, her voice low. "You realize what this means?" "I need someone else to see it," I said, "in case something happens." "Something happens?" I hesitated. "If she knows I'm watching, she'll strike first. She's that type." Laura was silent for a moment. "Do you want me to keep it on my drive?" "Yes, just don't share it yet." I could hear the tremor in my own voice. After we hung up, I sat at the window. Across the street, her porch light blinked on. It wasn't motion-triggered. I knew because I'd checked the settings on mine years ago. She was awake, maybe watching, maybe sensing. The air outside looked calm, but my mind was running. Who was the man? What was in those envelopes? Why trade them at night? I thought about showing the footage to my son, but I could already hear his response. You're overreacting again. He'd defend her, like he always did, until she no longer needed defending. I opened the video once more, slowing it down frame by frame. A single detail froze me. A faint license plate reflection in the side mirror of the black sedan. I wrote it down on a scrap of paper and tucked it into the same envelope where I'd stored the printed messages, my quiet archive of disbelief. At 11:15 p.m., my phone pinged with a notification from the camera app. Device motion detected. I clicked the feed instantly. Nothing but the still image of my car parked outside. The headlights of a passing vehicle glared across the lens, white and brief. I sat there, waiting for the clip to finish buffering, my pulse thudding in my throat. 5 minutes later, another alert. Recording interrupted. Interrupted. That word felt wrong. Cameras don't stop unless someone wants them to. I stayed awake until dawn, replaying the fragments. Then I stepped outside to leave for work and froze. Both front tires were flat, deep cuts across the rubber, deliberate, clean. The next morning, my car tires were slashed. He accused me of spying on family. He stood in my doorway holding a folded paper, his jaw tight. "Mom, this has gone too far," he said. Behind him, she hovered like a shadow that wouldn't leave. I could see her hand rest lightly on his arm, the way someone touches possession, not comfort. "What's that?" I asked. He unfolded it and held it out. "A complaint. The police came by this morning. Someone filed that you've been recording us." I looked at the paper, my name, a summary, a warning. The words, "potential harassment," stood out like a slap. I read it again just to make sure it was real. "Recording you?" I said quietly. "You think I'd do that for fun?" She spoke then, her voice soft, trembling just enough. "We just want peace, Margaret. You've been through a lot." I looked straight at her. "Don't pretend concern when you're the one who started this." My son stepped between us. "Stop it," he said. "Please, I don't want to choose sides." "You already have," I whispered. His eyes flickered, and I knew he'd heard the truth in it. At the station, the officer was polite, too polite. "It's a standard warning," he said. "We're not pursuing charges, but maybe give them some space." Space again. That word followed me like a curse. When he handed the printed form back, the paper smelled faintly of rain, damp, clean, and heavy. I folded it neatly, placed it inside my purse. "Can I ask who filed it?" I said. "Anonymous," he replied. Of course. Anonymous always means protected. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. The sky looked gray enough to crush you. I stood on the steps of the station, watching water run down the concrete in thin rivers. My reflection blurred in the puddle. A tired woman with a paper in her hand, accused of caring too much. When I got to my car, I noticed tire marks near the curb, fresh, deep ones. Someone had parked close, too close. I glanced up the road but saw no one. By the time I reached home, it was past 5. The living room felt small, air thick with quiet. I spread the police form on the table beside the other documents I'd been collecting, the transfer slip, the screenshots, the printed messages, a small pile of truth. It looked pitiful compared to the scale of what they were building against me. I made tea to steady myself, though it didn't help. My hands still trembled when I lifted the cup. The clock ticked above the counter, every sound too loud. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A message from my son. "Please don't come by for a while. Let things calm down." Calm down. That's what people say when they're comfortable with the chaos they caused. I typed back, "I'll respect your wishes." Then I deleted it before sending. He didn't deserve my submission written out for him. Instead, I opened my folder, the one marked House. Inside, I kept copies of every financial record I'd found, the transfers labeled support, the account with her name newly added, the receipt from the bank. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating. Proof isn't about revenge. Proof is about survival. I wrote one simple line across a fresh page. Money leaves trails. Then I started listing what I knew. Dates, amounts, names. If she was moving funds or hiding something, it would show. The rain outside turned heavier, tapping against the windows like a clock counting down. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to clarity. Let them smear my name. Let them call me unstable. Paper doesn't lie. Before midnight, I checked the newsfeed out of habit. A local police bulletin had posted the day's community report. Small thefts, neighborhood disputes, one mention of a domestic monitoring warning. My name wasn't printed, but the story was there. Someone had leaked the summary. Scrolling down, I saw a photo attached to the post, the one taken outside the station earlier. My son stood talking to the officer. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, she was smiling. She smiled in the background of the police photo. Her signature was on the mortgage papers. I stared at the folder on the desk, unable to breathe for a moment. The officer sat across from me, polite but uneasy, tapping his pen against a notepad. "You requested the file, ma'am. These are the documents linked to your son's property." I reached for the folder, my hand trembling. "Then why," I asked quietly, "does her name appear here?" He looked at me, hesitant. "It's a joint refinance. They applied together 2 months ago. Standard procedure when assets are shared." "Assets?" The word came out sharp, bitter. "You mean the house he bought before they married. The one I helped with. Every dollar of that down payment was from my savings." He adjusted his tie, avoiding my eyes. "I can't comment on prior ownership, but both parties signed." I flipped through the pages. Every sheet smelled faintly of ink and office air, the kind that never leaves a paper. Her name was printed beside his in neat, looping letters. Confident, practiced. She hadn't just moved into his home. She'd written herself into his future. I pressed my finger to the bottom of the page. The loan amount was massive. I whispered, "He couldn't afford this." The officer glanced at the clock above the counter. "It's a big risk," he admitted, "but the bank approved based on combined income." Combined. That word echoed in my head like a verdict. I thanked him, though it felt hollow, and gathered the copies. The papers rustled softly, like secrets shifting in my hands. Outside, the daylight was harsh. I leaned against the wall by the ATM lobby to steady myself. People walked past, unaware that I had just seen my family's history rewritten in a single signature. When I reached my car, I sat there for a long time, staring at the dashboard. A quiet anger started to build. Not wild, not loud, but steady, methodical. I had been called paranoid, overprotective, controlling. Yet here it was, proof that control was her craft, not mine. By noon, I was back home, spreading the documents across the table beside the earlier evidence. The texts, the messages, the police report. The paper trail was starting to speak. I called Laura again. "It's worse than I thought," I said. "What now?" "She's on the mortgage, not as a spouse sharing a life, but as a strategist claiming territory." Laura sighed. "Can you prove manipulation?" "I don't need to prove it," I said. "I just need to show the paper. It's all there. Numbers don't lie." For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was the weight of realization. She said finally, "You need to protect yourself. If she's using his name, your name might be next." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "That's already started. My savings went into that first payment. I saw the receipt. They restructured the loan under her authority." "You have that record?" "Yes," I whispered. "I have everything." I closed the call and looked down at the bank officer's card. His handwriting on the back was faint, but clear. "Copies verified by request at 10:15 a.m. That time would matter later. Small truths always do. I folded the documents, slipped them into an envelope, and sealed it with tape. My next move wouldn't be another confrontation. I was done talking to closed doors and polite officers. This time, I'd go through channels that couldn't ignore paper. By evening, I printed a short cover note. Simple words, no emotion. "Please find attached mortgage documents reflecting unreported joint liability. For record integrity, ensure acknowledgement of all listed parties. I didn't sign it with my full name, just an initial. Then I addressed the envelope to his workplace, the HR department. My heart was pounding as I walked it to the mailbox at the corner of the street. The sun was low, casting a dull glow over everything. I slid the envelope inside and listened to the soft thud as it fell. It was done. No shouting, no tears, no scene, just quiet accountability in motion. She had written her name beside his on paper she didn't own. Now the institution that paid his salary would see it too. I stood there for a moment longer, hands still trembling, before turning toward home. The world around me kept moving, traffic lights changing, people crossing streets, as if nothing had shifted. But something had. The balance of power had begun to tilt. I mailed copies to his HR department. She called me a parasite in front of my grandson. Her voice cut through the laughter of the school fair. One moment I was helping him with his balloon, the next her words tore the air open. "You feed on pity," she said. "You can't stand that he has his own family now." The crowd went quiet. I saw parents exchange glances, some pretending not to look. My grandson's hand slipped from mine. His balloon floated upward, bright and useless. I whispered, "Not here, please." She stepped closer. "Why not? You started this, didn't you? Spying? Accusing? Ruining your son's life?" The teacher on duty tried to intervene. "Let's keep voices down," she said softly. But my daughter-in-law kept going, eyes bright with something close to triumph. "You can't stand that you're not needed anymore," she hissed. "That's what this is. You're a parasite." For a moment, I couldn't move. The word echoed inside me, dull and heavy. I heard a few gasps from the parents standing nearby. My grandson's face crumpled. "Stop fighting!" he cried, tears streaking his cheeks. That's when I saw the teacher raise her phone. She was recording. For safety, she'd say later. For evidence, I'd think. The confrontation ended when another staff member stepped in, guiding her away. I stood alone beside the balloon stand, trying to steady my breathing. My grandson clung to my arm, sobbing quietly. I crouched down and wiped his face. "It's all right," I whispered. "None of this is your fault." He nodded, though he didn't believe me. When I got home, my scarf still smelled faintly of fried food from the fair. I laid it across the table, the fabric twisted from her grip earlier. It was a small reminder that humiliation has texture. It clings. It marks. I made tea but couldn't drink it. My hands shook too much. Instead, I opened my notebook and began to write. The police warning, the mortgage papers, the name transfers, the public scene, everything went in order. This time I wasn't writing feelings. I was building a record. By 7:00 p.m., I had typed a formal complaint, clear, factual, calm. I described her behavior, the pattern of control, the suspected financial manipulation. I attached scans of the bank file, the property deed, and copies of messages from my son. I didn't use adjectives. Facts didn't need decoration. Before sending it, I played the school video once. The teacher had shared it privately, unsure what to do. The footage showed her lunging toward me, voice raised, then my grandson's cry as the balloon drifted upward. In the background, a parent could be heard saying, "Someone should stop her." Paused the video there. That single line might save me later. I uploaded the file to my complaint draft. Supporting evidence. Attached. The email hovered on the screen, waiting for one last decision. Laura called then. "I heard about the school incident," she said quietly. "Already?" Small towns talk fast. I exhaled. "I'm filing it tonight." "You're sure?" "She crossed every line," I said. "This isn't family anymore. It's war, and I didn't start it." There was a pause. "You know, once you send it, you can't take it back." "I know." She hesitated, then said, "You're doing the right thing." After the call, I sat in silence for a long while. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I looked at the scarf again, still twisted on the table. then at the folded documents beside it. One soft, one hard. Fabric and fact. Emotion and evidence. I hit send. The message whooshed away, a single sound that meant no return. An hour later, as I was cleaning the kitchen, my phone buzzed again. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but picked up. "This is the school principal," the voice said. "I wanted to speak with you before you see it yourself." "See what?" I asked. There was a pause. "The video," he said. "Someone leaked it. It's online now. I'm so sorry." I didn't answer. I could already hear it in my mind. Her voice, sharp and public, calling me what I'd never been. The principal called. Someone had leaked the footage online. They finally asked me to tell my side. The courtroom smelled of old paper and polished wood. I sat behind the microphone, palms pressed flat on the table to keep them from shaking. Across from me, she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. My son sat between us, face unreadable. The judge adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and began. "This hearing concerns allegations of harassment, misuse of authority, and financial misconduct. Mrs." He paused, glancing at the notes. "You may proceed." I spoke slowly. "I didn't file this to hurt anyone. I filed it because truth doesn't survive silence." Her lawyer shifted in his seat. "Your claim is based on emotion," he said. "Our client acted within her rights as co-owner." "Co-owner?" I looked at him, then at the folder in front of me. That property was never hers to own. The mortgage was refinanced without full consent, using funds that weren't hers. The judge leaned forward. "You have proof?" I nodded and handed over a set of papers. The clerk took them, flipping through the pages. "These are bank transfers, signed statements, and a record of her accessing accounts linked to my savings. One transfer went to a private consulting account, another to a car registered in her name." Across the table, she whispered something to her lawyer, her voice trembling on purpose. "She's lying," she said loudly. "This is just revenge. She wants to ruin our family." I took a breath. "No," I said. "You did that when you used my son's name to drain what I built." For a moment, no one spoke. The ticking clock above the bench filled the silence. It was almost noon. I remember because sunlight hit the marble floor at a perfect angle. Cold, white, indifferent. The judge continued reading. "We've also received the footage from the school incident," he said, "and the financial report from the mortgage lender." He placed the papers down, his tone quiet but firm. "These items corroborate several of the petitioner's claims." Her lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this is character assassination. My client has faced months of stalking, of intimidation." The judge raised a hand. "Enough. The evidence speaks clearly. Whether intention or negligence, there were unauthorized actions here. The court will deliberate." Her tears vanished, like they'd been waiting for permission. She turned to my son, gripping his arm. "Say something," she hissed. "Defend me." He looked down. "I don't know what to believe anymore." That sentence broke more than the tension. It broke years of illusion. I lowered my eyes. "You don't have to choose sides," I said softly. "Just look at the facts." The judge signaled to adjourn. "Verdict deferred pending review," he said. "We reconvene next week." As the room emptied, I stayed seated for a moment. My scarf lay across my lap, a faint thread of warmth against the chill. I folded it carefully, the same way I'd folded every document, every memory. Outside the courtroom, cameras waited. A reporter called out, "Ma'am, do you think justice will be served?" "I think truth already has been," I replied. Flashes went off, voices overlapped. I spotted her in the corner of my vision, pretending to comfort my son while watching me. Her expression had changed. No more trembling, no more tears. Only calculation. I turned toward the courthouse doors. The air outside felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. That's when I heard her footsteps. She caught up to me near the steps, heels clicking against stone. She leaned in close, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I met her eyes. "I already did," I said. Then I walked away, leaving her words behind in the echo of the hallway. She followed me out, whispering, "You'll regret this." Her messages hit the internet that night. I was in the kitchen, staring at the blinking light on my laptop. The smell of coffee lingered from the half-empty cup beside me. A notification popped up, then another and another. My hands trembled before I even opened the first one. Someone had leaked her messages, screenshots, timestamps, her words in plain view. Controlling the old woman's family. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. The same voice that had called me paranoid now stood exposed to everyone. Within minutes, comments flooded in. Unbelievable! How could anyone treat their mother-in-law like that? Threads spread fast, shared across community pages and private groups. I didn't know who uploaded them, but the tone was surgical. No slander, just truth. My phone rang. I let it buzz until the fourth call. It was a neighbor. "I saw everything," she whispered. "You were right all along." Another ping. A message from my son. "We need to talk." The words blurred. For months I'd tried to make him see, but proof does what pleading never can. I opened the chat log again, reading one line at a time. Her arrogance had turned into confession. She'd bragged about the fake mortgage, mocked the hearing, even hinted at forging a medical note to make me look unstable. Every sentence was a nail in her own structure. By midnight, the thread had thousands of reactions. The top comment read, "This is what gaslighting looks like in real life." I leaned back and closed my eyes. The glow from the screen softened against the wall. A memory flashed. The scarf she wore that day in court, folded neatly as if innocence could be arranged like fabric. A new notification blinked. This time, it was the community moderator. "We verified the screenshots," he said. "They're real. We'll keep them up for transparency." For the first time, silence felt like safety. Then came another call, a local reporter. "Would you like to comment?" "No," I said. "Let the evidence speak." The next morning, the story made its way to every phone in town. I saw her face online, smiling in older photos beside captions now soaked in irony. The same people who once avoided me sent long apologies, claiming they'd always suspected something. Lies travel fast, but shame travels faster. My son came by around 10. He didn't say much, just handed me a folded note. "She's gone to her sister's," he said quietly. "They're deleting everything." I looked at him. "You saw it yourself?" He nodded. "All of it." There was no satisfaction in being right, only the strange weight of truth finally standing in the open. I poured him some coffee. Neither of us drank it. The air felt still, as if the house itself was listening. He spoke again, almost to himself. "Mom, how did it come out? Who sent it?" "I don't know," I said, "but maybe truth doesn't need a name." He exhaled. "I'm sorry it took this long." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "You saw what you needed to see." Another message flashed on my laptop, a short alert from the site. "Content removed for violation of privacy policy." I refreshed the page, but it was gone. Her account vanished overnight. He arrived without her. The morning air felt heavy, like the house itself knew what was coming. He stood in the doorway, hands empty, eyes older. The clock read just past 8. I noticed how quietly he shut the door, as if any sound might break what little was left between us. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where family photos once captured easier years. A framed picture of our last Christmas hung behind him. All smiles, no truth. He spoke first. "She's gone," he said. "She left last night." I nodded. "I know." He rubbed his forehead. "You saw the posts?" I did. Silence settled in. I could hear the soft ticking of the kitchen clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the small, ordinary noises that somehow made the moment sharper. He exhaled. "She took money. A lot of it. I didn't want to believe it until I saw the accounts myself. She used my name, my passwords, even opened a credit line under your address." I didn't flinch. "You helped her once," I said. "That's how she learned you wouldn't stop her." He didn't argue. His eyes dropped to the envelope on the table. Thick, sealed, deliberate. "This is everything," he said. "Bank statements, transfers, her signed confession. She left it behind when she realized I'd found out." I looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. The edges of truth are always sharp, even when they arrive neatly packaged. The counselor sat between us, notebook resting on her lap. "This is a start," she said softly. "We'll talk about repair, not just apology." He nodded slowly. "I'll cover every debt," he said. "The home loan, the utilities, even the card she maxed out in your name. I'll clear it all. It's the least I can do." I said nothing. He leaned forward. "I can't ask for forgiveness, but I need you to know I see it now. How she twisted everything, how I let it happen." His voice cracked at the edges. It wasn't a performance. It was exhaustion. The counselor looked at me. "You don't have to respond yet," she said. "Just listen." I turned to him. "You broke something that doesn't mend with money," I said quietly. "But maybe it can still hold if we don't pretend it's whole." He nodded, eyes wet. "Then tell me where to start." The counselor spoke again, firm but kind. "Restitution first," she said. "You'll both agree on boundaries, financial and emotional. Shared transparency, no hidden accounts, no shared credit until trust returns. You document each repayment. No gestures, only consistency." He agreed immediately. "I'll transfer the first payment today. I want you to see it, not just hear it." That line struck me more than any apology. Seeing truth in numbers, not promises. She guided us through the steps like she'd done this 100 times. How to rebuild without illusion. How to let remorse speak through structure. I listened, not forgiving, not punishing, just processing. Outside, the morning light grew stronger, seeping through the window until it reached the edge of the couch. It fell across both our hands, resting on our knees, apart, but steady. The warmth of it felt almost foreign. He looked up, voice barely a whisper. "I don't expect you to trust me again." I answered, "Not yet. Maybe someday, if honesty lasts longer than guilt." We both knew it wasn't closure, just a ceasefire. The counselor closed her notebook. "This is what healing looks like," she said. "Not neat, but possible." I reached for the framed photo behind him, tracing a finger over the image. "That woman in the picture," I murmured. "She believed family couldn't break." He looked down. "What does she believe now?" "I'm still deciding," I said. The clock ticked again, marking a new hour. The third time cue since everything fell apart. The light on our hands didn't fade. The counselor leaned forward gently. "One last question," she said. "Can you ever trust again?" The bank reversed the co-ownership. That single sentence sat at the top of the stamped paper, crisp and final. The morning light struck the seal, catching its faint shimmer like proof that this time nothing could be undone. I signed where they pointed. The pen moved easily, as if the ink itself knew this signature wasn't surrender, but survival. The bank officer nodded politely. "It's all processed," he said. "Her name has been removed from the title. The release will be filed by noon." I folded the document and placed it in my bag. Legal closure isn't comfort, but it's control. For months I'd been dragged through confusion, humiliation, and debt, all rooted in a signature that was never mine. Now, for the first time, the paper told the truth. Across the table, the officer hesitated. "Do you want a copy for your son?" I shook my head. "He'll see it when he's ready." The smell of coffee drifted from his desk. Steam curled upward, fragile and calm. I watched it fade. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive with celebration. It just stops fighting you. As I walked out, I passed the same marble hallway where she once smiled beside him, pretending the world was hers to arrange. Now her absence felt louder than her voice ever did. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual noise: cars, footsteps, conversation. It was noon. The sound didn't disturb me anymore. It matched my calm. I stopped near the bank's entrance and looked at the folder in my hands. Inside was a notarized seal, embossed and final. Proof that boundaries can be rebuilt even after they're violated. I whispered under my breath, "Justice sometimes sounds like silence." A microsecond of reflection followed. No tears, no triumph, just stillness. I caught my reflection in the glass door, faint but steady. The woman staring back wasn't the one who begged to be believed. She didn't need witnesses now, only distance. As I crossed the street, a message buzzed on my phone. My son again. She wants to meet, to explain. I typed slowly. There's nothing left to explain. Then I turned the phone face down and kept walking. A few blocks away, I stopped at a mailbox. I'd been carrying one last envelope, small, unmarked. Inside it, a single copy of the release papers. No letter, no words, no instructions. Just truth, folded clean. I slid it in and let it go. The envelope disappeared into the slot with a dull sound, like closure landing where emotion used to live. I stood there for a moment longer, the city wind brushing past, the faint warmth of coffee still lingering in memory. Then I walked away, one hand resting lightly on my bag, not to hold what was inside, but to remind myself that it was over. I mailed her a single envelope with no note. I keep one photo on the fridge again. It's the same photo I once took down in anger. The three of us smiling in the backyard, sunlight catching the edges of our faces. I used to avoid it, as if looking meant reliving everything that went wrong. Now, it just feels like a moment that survived. Dawn comes early these days. The 5th clock cue, I remind myself. The light through the kitchen window hits the same corner where the old kettle sits, the one that used to whistle too loud. I still make tea at the same time, out of habit more than need. The house feels lighter. Bills are simple again. Groceries, utilities, nothing hidden, no mysterious withdrawals, no new accounts to trace. I keep a written list on the counter, each expense small, visible, and mine. On weekends, my grandson visits. He runs through the hallway like it never carried arguments. Last Sunday, he brought a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. He taped it beside the photo on the fridge. "So you don't forget us," he said. I smiled. I couldn't if I tried. When he laughs, it fills the house in a way that doesn't echo. It stays. My neighbor Carla stops by sometimes. She brings over muffins and the kind of gossip that sounds like healing. "You look different," she said once. "Peace suits you." "I'm still learning how to wear it," I told her. We sat by the window, sipping tea, talking about ordinary things, plants, neighborhood repairs, the bakery reopening down the street. No judgment, no pity, just small life again. Every so often, I catch myself checking the mail for letters that won't come. Then I stop. Some silences are mercy in disguise. The counselor still calls once a month to make sure everything's steady. She asked last time, "Do you feel safe now?" "I do," I said, "but it's a quiet kind of safe, the kind you earn." She laughed softly. "That's the only kind that lasts." After she hung up, I walked to the kitchen and touched the edge of the photo again. My fingers rested over the faces, his, mine, and the little one between us. I didn't feel lost this time. I felt distance, and that was enough. I still brew tea for 2, out of habit. Old patterns die gently when you stop feeding them guilt. As the kettle began to hum, sunlight stretched across the tiles, soft, golden, patient. The same window, the same morning rhythm, but everything beneath it had changed. Sometimes I whisper to myself, "What's hidden finds light." The words don't sting anymore. They remind me that exposure didn't destroy me. It freed me. The bank is quiet now. The debts are gone. The noise that once filled my nights has faded into simple routines: watering plants, paying bills, folding laundry, and locking the door before bed. Peace isn't loud. It's steady. It's knowing every object in the room belongs where it is. Even the photo on the fridge, even the scars in the walls. Before I turn off the kitchen light, I take one last look at that photograph and the child's drawing beside it. Together, they tell the story better than I ever could. What's broken can still hold warmth. I walk down the hallway and stop by the living room window. The sky is clear. For the first time in years, I don't feel the need to check anything. I no longer check the cameras at night. Did you enjoy this story? Tell me which city you're listening from. I read every comment. If the story touched you, you can support the channel with a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this every day. Your encouragement really helps. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what moment stayed with you. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's more on the channel as well. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next life story. With respect and gratitude.